until after our 20 minutes are up, and then I'll submit attendance because they're keeping track of attendance.
Oh, I didn't mean to do that.
Weekly basis. We're doing it on a daily basis. So you'll be marked absent if you don't show up. Anyway, so let me show you, go back here to where I'm sharing with you. So we have in our stream, you will see the warm up. You'll have that. Typically, I ask you not to fill it in unless you are, thank you, Jordan, unless you are missing class. It's not going to hurt you, but it just doesn't make it give us so much space.
Yo, it does that every time.
That pop up. Now, your research projects and study skills classes, we are supposed to take attendance, which is a little different than last time we met, but it will be mainly a time for you to work on anything you need. If you've got questions, I am asking that you will come to my office rather than go into the research project or study skills Google Classroom, just simply because that way, if I have students who have a question and they're not in my research projects class, they could still join us in the research project because they go to my office. So everybody should be invited to the office. If you're not, please message me, let me know, and I'll get you in there. So tomorrow, we'll meet a little bit earlier, quite a few minutes before. Anyway, let me move on to our classwork. And please don't forget to take the Great Depression pre-assessment. Again, if you don't know, put a question mark in or say, I haven't studied this before. I think you have to put something in, even if you just put 3 dots. That just tells me that this is brand new to you and you don't have knowledge base for the topic. That's fine. All you have to do is go through those, I think it's 6 questions, and then you'll be done. What we're working on today is we'll actually use 2 of these documents. We'll use our assignment for the assignment for today, for day 2. We're not going to, if we were in class, I would be doing this differently, but because we are remote now, I only have 20 minutes now, I'm down to 15. I will be changing how I do it in class. The first 20 minutes is me instructing. The rest of that 40 minutes or 55 minutes is for you to work on the assignment. So we're going to glance at what our textbook says, and I will do that with you all because I've got it electronically. The textbook gives us very brief information, and then we'll answer those 2 questions before we get started. The main task for today is for you to look at some of the photographs concerning the stock market crash and to do what's called a taco analysis. So you're going to pick one photo and you're going to look at it and then answer the photo analysis questions. And it's called taco because they use time, action, captions, and objects / people. And you answer the questions that are there. Remembering that in history, when you're talking about thinking as a historian or viewing something as a historian, you always want to talk about what evidence do you have to support your answer. So when it says, when was the photo taken, what evidence do you have that that's when that photograph was taken? What is happening in the photograph? What words are in the photograph or on the caption of it? And then what are the objects of people? What do you see and in the photo as well? So you're going to have a collection of photographs to look at. And one of the places where you're going to find that collection of photographs is when you go back to the Google Classroom assignment. It says 1929 stock market crash. Like I said, I use a lot of resources other than what our textbook says because the textbook, as you'll see in a few moments, is very limited. This gives you a basic timeline from 1926 to 1929 about the stock market crash. And then I have included a collection of photographs as well as the link where you can go to get that photograph. So you can use there's 3 photographs there. I don't want to spend a lot of time looking at them right now, but there are photographs there. Plus, there will be photographs at the link that, hold on, let me find where I'm at. In the assignment, there is a link to a web address. Scroll back down here and give you all a headache while it's going. The stock market crash, there's some photographs from there as well. Or you can find your own. Okay. So at any point in time, I will give you a link to one site that's going to help you answer the questions. I'm going to put that in our Google chat. It's actually from the Virginia Community University. So it's a pretty reliable source. And let me find where my textbook went. Oh, here it is. Okay. I'll have to explain how to do the textbook and I'll get into the textbook later. Like I said, we very seldom use it, and you'll see why in just a moment, because it doesn't give us a lot of detail. Worried people gather outside the New York Stock Exchange on October 24th, 1929. The day the crash began is also known as Black Thursday. October 29th, 1929 is known as Black Tuesday. That's the actual day of the full stock market crash. At least that's when they say. So, causes of the crash. Most Americans had great confidence in their new president, Herbert Hoover, who was inaugurated on March 1929. For most of the 1920s, Hoover had served in the cabinet as Secretary of Commerce. In that role, he had helped to create the greatest prosperity in the country had ever seen. During the 1928 campaign, he assured voters, "We in America are nearer to a final triumph over poverty than ever before in the history of any land." Then, only 7 months later, after Hoover's inauguration, the stock market crashed. The United States began to plunge into the worst economic depression in its history. Everywhere, stunned people asked, how could this have happened? An economic slowdown. When Herbert Hoover took office in 1929, he saw a growing economy. Although the most of the nation's leaders, he did not recognize the signs of the trouble. Hoover did realize that some Americans had not shared in the prosperity of the 1920s. As you have read, farmers already faced hardships in the 1920s, so did workers in the textile and coal industries. For workers in these industries, a booming economy was something they only read about in the newspapers. In the words of one Pennsylvania mining town tombstone, reflects their feelings of frustration. For 40 years beneath the sod, with pick and spade I did my task. The coal king's slave, but now, thank God, I'm free at last. In the mid-1920s, the overall economy began to slow down. No one noticed the slowdown because at the time, the government did not keep detailed statistics. And then here you have a picture. It said American farmers face economic challenges in the 1920s, such as increasing costs for equipment. Farmers who wanted to stay in business had to buy expensive tractors like the one shown above. And they couldn't afford to buy it firsthand. So what they would do is they would buy it on credit. And sometimes they leveraged their farm against it. And this piece here would be used for cutting down the grain or crops. So we do have some pictures in the textbook, which are nice. By August 1929, some investors worried that the boom might soon end. They began selling their stock. In September, more people decided to sell. The rash of selling caused stock prices to fall. Hoover reassured investors that the business of the country is on a sound and prosperous basis. Despite the president's calming words, the selling continued and stock prices tumbled. Many investors had bought stock on margin. Buyers of stocks on margin pay only a part of the cost of the stock when they make the purchase. They borrow the rest of it from their stockbroker. With the prices falling, the brokers asked investors to pay back what they owed, and investors sold their stock to repay the loans. And in many cases, the stock wasn't worth as much as they had paid for it, so they lost money, and now they owe the broker more money. A panic quickly set in. Between October 25th and 29th, desperate people tried to unload millions of shares. As a result, the stock market prices dropped even further. This is the front page of the Brooklyn Daily Eagle in New York. Wall Street in panic as stocks crash. So you went, in some cases, from being a millionaire and having all your money invested in the stock market to finding out that the paper was almost worthless and losing billions of dollars. In one day, they lost $14 billion. Anyway, when the stock market opened on Tuesday, October 29th, a wild stampede of selling hit the New York Stock Exchange. Prices plunged because there were no buyers. People who had thought they owned valuable stock were left with worthless paper. After Black Tuesday, as it came to be called, business leaders tried to restore confidence in the economy. John D. Rockefeller, who we've talked about before, had told reporters, "My son and I have for some days been purchasing some common stocks." And replied comedian Eddie Cantor, "Sure, who else has any money left?" In other words, Rockefeller was the wealthiest man in the United States, and he had money. He didn't lose everything. And not everybody lost everything they had, but there was a huge percentage of people that did. That's what our textbook says about the stock market crash and what happened. Now, this link I put into the Google Drive. Let me come over here real quick because I want to get the first two questions answered. I don't see. See Jasmine, Tristan, Zizi, and Rachel. No, they're not here. Anyway, this is from the website that I was telling you about. It's from one of the universities in Virginia. And they give you a little, in my opinion at least, a little better understanding of what the stock market crash was and pertains to what happened on as a result of the stock market crash. Okay. So in late October 1929, stock market crashed, wiping out about 40% of the paper value of common stocks. So if you had $10,000, now you only had $4,000. When the stock market crashed in 1929, it didn't happen on a single day. Instead, the stock market continued to plummet over the course of a few days, setting in motion one of the most devastating periods in the history of the United States. The most significant events started on Black Thursday, October 24th. On that one day, nearly 13 million shares of stock were traded. It was a record number of stock trades for the U.S. J.P. Morgan and a few other bankers attempted to bail out the banking system using their own money. They were unsuccessful. Banks ended up closing. Their move led to a slight increase in the stock prices on October 26th. But over the weekend, many investors lost faith in the stocks and decided to sell their shares. When the markets reopened on Monday, October 28th, another record number of stocks were traded, and the stock market declined more than 22%. The situation worsened yet again on the infamous Black Tuesday, where more than 16 million stocks were traded, and the stock market ultimately lost $14 billion that day. So you had people literally going from being wealthy to having nothing, which you'll see in some of the photographs. So let's come back to our assignment. What could we say the stock market crash was? Can somebody unmute and tell us?
Okay. Start of the stock market. I can't say it for some reason. Market
Stock
crash.
market.
Start. Okay. Was when the the most the area, a lot of people that were I think it was called investors. I don't really know a lot of words.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. Investors.
Died that day when
You're talking about the investors tried to sell their stock?
and when it crashed, a lot of them had died.
Well, they didn't actually die, but the value of their stocks definitely did.
Oh yeah.
So it's a order of law of supply and demand when it comes to economics. So you have, if I have a 100 stocks, say I have 100 candy bars, let's do it that way, and each candy bar represents a stock. If I have 100 candy bars, then okay, I have one per student. Every student can have a candy bar. But what if I only have 10 candy bars? Now, the supply is lower, so the demand would probably be higher, and only 10 people could get candy bars. Now, so those candy bars are going to be worth more. Now, if I do it the other way and I say, okay, I have 100, say I have 1,000 candy bars, but I only have 100 students. Now, candy bars are a common thing. The value of them is not very high. So when people started selling their shares in the companies, they lost money. So this is a period of time specifically in October of 1929, but it did not start there. This is where, if you look at the document that is in your Google assignment for this week,